What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 156.
156.
On this Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson, Tom Green with you on a Tuesday. We slid the show over a day, had the softball doubleheader in Norman yesterday that James was at. Tom was just getting back from a short vacation, so we slid the show over a day. Appreciate everyone bearing with us. Also want to note the Thursday recruiting show will also be slid over a day. We're going to do that on Friday, Colin and I. So we're kind of sliding everything over a day in the week. So keep up with that. Make sure you adjust your schedules accordingly. On the program today, we've got a lot of winning to talk about. Everyone won over the weekend, even men's basketball. Women's hoops got in there. Both Diamond Sports had great weekends as well. So we've got a lot of winning to talk about, a lot of good vibes from Norman. Something that I think everyone could use after what's been a tough year for a lot of OU sports. Good weekend. We're going to recap it all across multiple sports. But guys, let's start as we typically do with football. We're going to continue our position status report series. We're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Only a few to go. Spring practice is coming up. Obviously, this is the last full week of February. We flip over to March this weekend. So we're getting close to spring ball starting. Let's do linebackers today, guys. We've done both sides of the defensive line. Let's do linebackers before moving into the secondary next week. Interesting position here. Obviously, the big gun, Danny Stutzman, no longer there. It feels like he's been such a huge just presence on the team, and especially obviously in that linebacker room for so long. It's going to be kind of weird for him to not be around, but you're still bringing back a ton of production outside of him. Kip Lewis, obviously back. Kobe McKenzie, you figure you're going to step into a bigger role as well. Back in the fold, Samuel Masigo had some nice things last year. Lewis Carter did transfer out, but you brought in Kendall Daniels from Oklahoma State. Jaron Kanik maybe moving to offense full-time. That's not really been fully established. For you guys, this linebacker room feels like it's still in a really good place. Maybe could use another body or two in the portal post-spring. We'll figure that out later, but your kind of assessment of this linebacker room right now, which has got new management, obviously with Nate Dreiling and Wes Goodwin now coaching inside and outside. What's kind of your feeling on this group in the post-Danny Stutzman era?
Yeah, I think the linebacker should still be in pretty good shape, but it might be the position that between this and cornerback, maybe I have the biggest questions about on this defense. I still think they have dudes there, but obviously replacing, a guy that's been your leading tackler for the last 3 years and was a consensus All-American, back-to-back All-American, one of the most decorated linebackers the program's seen, Danny Stutzman. That's tough. And obviously losing Zach Alley as your linebackers coach too, it's a little bit difficult. But you're bringing back Kobe McKenzie, you're bringing back Kip Lewis, you're bringing back Samuel Masigo, like you said. But I think losing out on a guy like Lewis Carter, who we all thought had a really high ceiling. I think that is a little bit of a tough blow. And then Dasan McCullough transferring out too in that cheetah spot, because you don't know exactly when Kendall Dolby's going to be full go. But, bringing in Kendall Daniels, I think, is a big win for them. And, I think they feel really good about the pieces they have. I just have a few questions about kind of depth behind that top group there, especially if Jaron Kanik's going to be splitting time at H-back.
Yeah, it's kind of like the defensive ends we were talking about. It's like I feel good with the top guys for sure. Just got to figure out who those next guys are going to be, for this group. I mean, we talked to Kobe McKenzie a lot before the bowl game and got to talk to the other guys as well. And you can see that there's maybe some leadership aspects for them there, which is what you want in your linebacker, especially when you have to replace a guy like Danny Stutzman. And so when you have those guys that can move on and be better for this program, it's more about the guys that are behind them. What are they going to do here? And so that's really my question mark for this room. But I guess you kind of got to wait and see. What can Nate and Wes kind of do for this unit? I mean, how can they grow? Because they've been under different management, I feel like, the last couple of years, just different coaches there, learning different things. What can this group do to get those guys motivated and get them going? And that's what I'm really focusing on here with them.
Yeah, I agree. Really strong at the top. Kip Lewis, argument he made best defensive player, probably him or Mason Thomas. For that conversation. So you're great at the top. I love Kobe McKenzie. He's really seemed to step into a big-time leadership role, which can't be discounted also. He's great with us in the media. He's someone that if you're Brent Venables, you feel confident just that guy's going to do the right thing. And he's a good football player too, obviously. Samuel Masigo ready to make that jump. but little thin. I mean, you've only signed one linebacker the last 2 years, James Nesta 2 cycles ago, and now Marcus James this previous year. So you don't have a lot of that kind of surplus of talent coming up. And then a guy like Lewis Carter leaves, Deshaun McCullough transfers out, like you guys noted. And you're kind of looking around like, okay, we really have really good talent here, but we're like 1 or 2 injuries away from this kind of being a problem. You move Jaren Kanak over to offense, again, potentially full-time. We haven't heard how they're really approaching that. Hopefully something that'll become apparent pretty soon with spring practice starting. Get to hear from Brent Venables, but it's really strong at the top, but it is a little thin. And I think that probably it's a position that you could use another guy in the post-spring. Do you guys kind of agree with that? I guess this post-spring portal cycle, which is a ways off, you got, obviously a full month of spring practice yet to start, but feels like that's probably a position that should be targeted to add another guy in addition to Kendall Daniels. You added obviously in the winter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think especially if Jaren makes the full-time move, right. You definitely need to add another guy. But I again, the defense, I think they're like top to bottom, they're in really good shape depth-wise. But if you can add another linebacker, if you can add another cornerback, if you can add another defensive lineman, you'll feel really, really good about it. Just kind of filling out some of those depth pieces and seeing what's available, in the next month and a half or so. But yeah, no, I do think, even though you're losing Zach Alley, who did a really good job with those linebackers last year, bringing in a young guy like Nate Dreiling, who's got some good experience coaching linebackers and has called the defense before, and then Wes Goodwin, who has worked with Brent Venables and kind of knows what he expects out of that position group. Similarly to when he brought in Zach Alley, it's like this is a guy who knows the language, who knows what Brent wants from that group, because we know how hands-on Brent has been with the linebackers in the past, and he's still going to have a lot on his plate because he's going to be calling this defense now. So having a guy like Wes and bringing in Nate Dreiling, I think is going to help kind of ease that transition a little bit after losing Zach Alley.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be you bringing a guy to handle either the Mike or Will spot. I think he's going to be all right at the Cheetah spot. I like Kendall Dobie. I mean, and Kendall Daniels. Obviously, Dobie's got to come back from the injury, but you can throw Samuel Seago in there and maybe a guy like that. And so I think the Mike and Will is where you want to add a guy. And that's the place I'm really worried about in terms of the depth I was talking about. You can't play every snap as the guys. I mean, you're going to get tired eventually, so you got to have that depth. So that's where I think if you're going to bring a guy in, it's going to be for one of those 2 spots for that linebacker room.
Like you said, can't play every snap, and OU knows as well as anyone, injuries happen. Like I said, it feels like you're 1 or 2 guys going down from kind of being like, crap, like this got kind of tight all of a sudden. So it's a good spot, new coaching. It'll be interesting to see some of these guys in spring, but no argument about the top end of it. Kip Lewis and then Kobe McKenzie also. That's really, really strong at the top. Tom, you good?
Yeah, sorry, my dog just walked in and sneezed and was getting a little crazy. So
you're good. You're good. Been there. So we'll continue that next week with the secondary. We'll do cornerbacks and we'll close with safeties in 2 weeks' time. Again, spring practice starting at the back end of next week. Don't really know what that's going to look like from an availability standpoint. When we'll hear from Brent Venables. When we'll be able to actually get out there to practice, but should be soon in one way or another. So keep an eye out for that over at Oklahoma.247sports.com. Great time to become a VIP subscriber, and obviously subscribe to the YouTube channel to make sure you don't miss anything, practice footage, player interviews, Brent Venables, all that. That's all coming up very, very soon. A lot more football stuff coming in the very, very near future. As far as some other sports, mentioned, really good weekend for everybody. Everybody picked up wins over the last few days. We'll start with men's hoops, Tom. We were there at the Lloyd Noble Center on Saturday. It was
you were there.
Oh, you were not. I keep saying that. It was Blake and Koviak was there. Did a great job sliding in. Tom will be with me on Wednesday. We'll get that in just a second. This was a chips were down season. It's over if you lose type of game. Obviously, after the debacle against LSU, they got blown out by Florida. They lost 5 in a row, 4 of which being complete blowouts. The one non-blowout was the meltdown. So it was as gross of a 5-game losing streak as you're ever going to have. But they got it done. They beat Mississippi State, which I was pretty worried about going in because they're just a terrible matchup with their length. But they found a way. Jeremiah Fears was excellent. And Sam Godwin played easily his best game in SEC play. Tom, I mean, it's not like all is saved. They still have to find a way to win a couple more, and it's going to be tough to do it. But, boy, I mean, to say they needed that is a massive understatement. And they've cracked the door open a little bit. There's a little bit of hope here after a must-have huge win on Saturday over Mississippi State.
Yeah, I mean, the first step was stopping the bleeding, which they finally did. Obviously, you'd like to have that LSU game back, kind of like you'd like to have that Texas A&M game back from earlier in SEC play. But the fact that they were finally able to stop that slide and get back in the win column against a very good Mississippi State team, it's another quad one win. Again, they still have work to do. A lot of the projections basically have it as a coin flip right now. They're like 50-55%, like right there on the bubble.
Those have not gone well for Porter last.
I was about to say,
yeah. The good news is that the bubble does not seem to be as strong as it was like last year. You need to hope that there aren't a lot of bid stealers in a conference tournament play. And the other good thing is that, look, the last 4 regular season games are still quad one opportunities. There's no chance for a bad loss on paper. Mm-hmm. And Oklahoma's already, been stacking up some quad one wins. Obviously, SEC play has been rough, but it is a stacked conference. A lot of experts believe it's going to be 13 or maybe even 14 SEC teams making the field, which is insane.
Wow.
Which is basically everybody except LSU and South Carolina.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's other SEC teams on the bubble. Georgia's on the bubble. Texas is on the bubble. Oklahoma's obviously on the bubble. Like that, you still have work to do, but there's opportunity ahead, like Porter Moser has said. And I personally think if they can win 2 of these last 4 games, they should feel pretty good. Maybe get another win in the SEC tournament, see how that does. But again, you actually have to go out and win those games. It's not just that you have these quad win opportunities; you have to take advantage of it. And I do think that it is a promising sign that these last 3 games or so, Jeremiah Fears has kind of seemingly caught a second wind. I mean, SEC play has been, up and down for him as a true freshman, a guy that should be a high school senior, and he's, taking his lumps, but it seems like he's kind of caught his second win these last 3 games. He's been really good, just named the SEC Freshman of the Week yesterday. Averaged almost 25 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds a game against 2 really good teams in Florida and Mississippi State. And Porter Moser said after that Florida game, Jeremiah coming along like that, kind of a silver lining in a very frustrating loss. So if he can play like he's played these last few games, I think it obviously improves their chances. Like he raises the ceiling for this team. And if you can get anything remotely close to what Sam Godwin did against Mississippi State,
where did that come from?
That is a bonus because it has been a very tough sledding for him in SEC play against a lot of these bigger teams. And obviously Jalen Moore, just continue to be steady and not make those mistakes that cost them against LSU. Mm-hmm. Like you need Jalen Moore to be the leader that he is, and then just fill it out the rest with the supporting cast as best you can.
Yeah, I think it's just nice to see the guys not quit on the season. I mean, you had that 5-game losing streak and things look really, really bad. People are talking really bad about you. And you come out and get a top 25 win. I mean, that's just good stuff. So now you think, okay, now we build on this? Can that be the momentum we need, the final push we need to get going here before the tournament? And so that's the biggest thing for me to see what they did there.
No, it's a great point. I mean, people have their opinions on Porter Moser right now, and they're valid. He's still got him playing hard. They came out with a great energy on Saturday, got to a good start, which has not been a common thing this season. And yeah, they played well. Jeremiah Fears was awesome. And you hate to put it all on a kid, a true freshman, but it really they'll go as far as he can take them. I mean, they need him to be good or great, maybe even to win these SEC games. And he's playing great. He was great on Saturday. So we'll see what they do from there. Like Tom said, Sam Godwin was the best he's been probably since Bedlam, in the Paycom Center back in December. He was great. Jalen Moore had some nice things. Duke Miles had his teeth busted out. Great play.
Yeah, that was crazy.
By the way. Right in front of us in the paint, right where I sit on the baseline, and you could see it immediately. He looked up and he felt it with his tongue and his hands. It was like, oh no, it was bad. But
what does that sound? What does something like this sound like? What does that sound like? Can you hear the impact of that, or what's going on there? Was it too loud in the arena?
He just looked like he face planted on the floor, and he came up and spitting out tooth shards. Mm-hmm. Not great, but he's good. He came back in the game, which is pretty. It says something about him, but it was sorely needed. Kentucky on Wednesday night. Tegaoa return. Kentucky's a really weird team because at times they look like they're Final Four good. Other times it's like, it's kind of gross. Their defense is awful, but they can score with the best of them. Ortega's having a great season. They're missing some key guys that I don't think are going to be back for this game on Wednesday night. They're close to getting back Lamont Butler, their starting point guard, but I think he's going to still be out, if I'm not mistaken. Jackson Robinson, too. Huge game, obviously. I mean, this is another massive one. It's hard to kind of see the path if you don't win on Wednesday. Could still happen, sure. But, this is kind of one at home. Kentucky seems gettable right now with the way they're playing, missing some key guys. We'll see what happens. I'm very interested in the crowd. The crowds have been terrible this year. We've talked about that before. And I haven't really been blaming the fans. Okay, it's been a kind of a tough year. But Wednesday night's one of those spots. It's Kentucky at home with your tournament hopes on the line. Like, you would hope you get a decent crowd. Porter talked about that on Saturday. Kind of acknowledged, we have not had a home court advantage this year at all. And so I'm very interested in that. The baseball team, which we'll talk about later, plays at 4 right before the basketball game. It's going to be pretty nice weather. And I think OU even made it a really cheap ticket deal to get tickets to both. So you would think this is kind of one of those spots OU fans got to just show up for both teams. They just have to. So very interested in that massive game on Wednesday. And it's going to be interesting. Otego back in Norman. Yeah,
maybe Otego factor kind of lends some more fans to come
just
in.
Kentucky, just removing all context.
Kentucky's first ever visit to Norman. Otego coming back. People are probably going to want to give him a hard time after he transferred out. And like you said, I don't know if it's a must win, but it feels like it's one of the best opportunities to get a win at this point in the season. Look, it's still a very tough road ahead. Again, all 4 games are quad 1 opportunities, but you look on paper, this Kentucky game looks attainable. The game Saturday at Ole Miss looks a little bit more attainable. Next week is going to be tough with, Missouri at home and then at Texas to close out the regular season. But it feels like all these games are attainable. It's just a matter of whether Oklahoma can actually, capitalize on the opportunity.
No doubt. Going to be fun. Wednesday night, Kentucky, first ever trip to Norman, and Otego back. There's a lot of storylines, and we'll be there on Wednesday night. Should be a fun one. Looking forward to that. But as of now, still alive. 4 to go. They're still alive. As the women, James, they're rolling. 5 straight wins. They demolished Arkansas on Sunday. Another really good second half, which seems to be becoming a trend of playing really good ball after halftime. They're playing really well. They got 2 regular season games left. We talked about this a few times. The schedule lightened up in February, and they're just feasting on it. They're taking full advantage. They're rolling over teams right now. They seem like they're playing their best basketball. They're in good shape. A lot to like with the way they're playing right now. And again, they beat the tar at Arkansas. So it was like a 40-point win on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 5-game winning streak for them. I mean, it's going really well. Now, the first couple of games of this streak, you didn't have Reagan Beers. And so OU was finding ways to win without her, playing unranked teams, but still kind of finding the way to push in the end to get the win. And now they have Reagan Beers. It's changed a lot. And she's been going off, Josh. It's crazy. Yeah. 2 30-point games for her, which is just phenomenal. She's the first one to do that since Courtney Paris in 2007. I know OU fans know all about Courtney Paris. It's that type of run for Reagan Beers right now. And then so you have her playing that well. And then you got players like Skylar Vann, who's out. Now all of a sudden she's a lot more aggressive on the offensive end. You're seeing more of what she was doing last year. And it's just everything that you exactly need for this unit, because you already had players like Raina Scott and those like that that have come along and gone and got really good at this time of the year. Sahara Williams doing really good things on the offensive glass and things like that. Peyton Verhulst, who's just become, she was a streaky shooter. Now she's like the one you absolutely need to control the ball. And it's just going really well for them overall. They found everything they really need at this point in time. And I'm going to write something about this because they talked about it when they had the Auburn issues and things like that. That was a turning point for them. They felt like that was the big thing because they had won that game, but it was like it was a lot more difficult than it should have been. And that showed them you can't continue to play like this if you want to win these big games. And I was waiting for it to kind of really flourish out and do things. But now this 5-game winning streak, it's like it makes perfect sense now. I mean, it's just really it's working really well for them.
5-game win streak. Their regular season is tightening up. The women's season ends a little bit sooner. The regular season, that is, before they get to SEC tournament stuff. They've only got 2 left. They're at Florida Thursday, and then Alabama, who's number 20 in the AP poll right now, comes to Norman on Sunday. Feels like, James, if they can win these 2, obviously the big one being on Sunday, they're almost certainly going to get a top 16 seed in the tournament, which is a great thing. Big week to kind of just continue to run through the finish line with that game on Sunday being especially large. Obviously, a top 20 matchup. That's kind of been the one thing. They don't really have any bad losses outside of maybe Mississippi State.
Mississippi State is, yeah.
But, the big wins are kind of lacking. They've got a couple, but they've missed a couple opportunities to get some other ones. Sunday's another opportunity to get a big win. And like I said, if you win these games, I mean, you're going to get a top 16. It seems like almost no matter what happens in the SEC tournament. So big week to kind of finish strong and get those home games in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, if they win these next two, I couldn't imagine they would be left out. That would be really shocking. Something really happened on the outside. I don't know. That would be crazy because they're coming in number 15 right now with the way it's all shaped up, and that was before this 5-game win streak. And so,
right, they've only won since then.
Yeah, so like it would be really shocking. So it's a good spot for OU to be in. Everything that they want is in their hands. All they have to do is win and then get what they want. And so hopefully they'll be in a posting here when the tournament starts, things like that. Absolutely,
playing well. Thursday night against Florida, and like I said, Sunday home finale of the regular season against Alabama, who's number 20. So should be a fun one on Sunday afternoon at the LNC. Tom, we'll let you slide out. I'll see you shortly in Norman. James and I are going to do some Diamond Sports coverage. Porter Moser press conference coming up in just a little bit. That'll already be up by the time this video is up on YouTube. So, Tom, see you down there shortly.
See y'all later.
All right, we now shift to the Diamond Sports portion of the program. James covers softball. I cover baseball. We'll start with softball. Got to have some home games finally. Ended up being pretty good weather. The weather jacked it all up. They had to shift the schedule around multiple times. But they got 4 games in, did OU. They won them all. They're 14-0. Had a little bit of a scare yesterday with Bowling Green. You were there. I was dialed in watching the game from home. Talk about the weekend as a whole. And I guess, I mean, if you don't want to get pushed by Bowling Green, obviously. But the fact they showed some resolve, rallied, late after falling behind, I think maybe is somewhat encouraging. What was kind of the sentiment for you coming out of the weekend from Patty Gasso, and for you just kind of what you saw? So they won all these games, some things you didn't love, some things you did like. I guess kind of sum it up for us. How should OU fans be feeling about this team right now at 14-0?
Yeah, I asked Patty Gasso that exact question. But first off, you were talking about this weekend and the weather. It's ridiculous there were fans out there in shorts. I mean, you guys are wild. I'll just say that from the start. But
going for today.
Yeah, it's fine. But that was crazy. But I asked Patty Gasso just about that. She said she honestly, they thought they were very nervous and going into it. She said she didn't feel nervous because she's played in that environment so much all of last season, so she was fine. But she said sometimes I kind of forget about how it is for the newer players. And so that was a thing for them. She said they kind of were tense a little bit to start out. And you kind of saw that in some of the games. They got behind a little bit soon and had to come back in a lot of the games here. And so that was a big thing for them. I mean, overall, but when you look at the weekend, it's a success. I mean, you win the games that you needed to win. Nobody beat you in your own tournament. The fans came out. There were 12,000 fans overall throughout the weekend at Love's Field. That's a really, really good turnout for softball. So it was incredible. I mean, you saw some things for different players that it's very promising. When we saw Sydney Sanders just past game, she had 7 RBIs in those 2 games on Monday and a grand slam. Like, of all the players last year, she was the one that was kind of like, they talked bad about her because of the way she hit at the plate and she struggled. She had a very long slump during the season. So it was really good to see her now being one of the big offensive threats for this unit. And, she's the only senior on the squad. So you want to see that from like one of your leaders. And so that was a really big thing. Ella Parker continues to dominate at the plate. It looks like, she still like the best player in the country to me. Like she can do everything. Like there's nothing she can't do. And it's just wild that she's that good at this sport, man. It's crazy. And then you have players like Cassidy Pickering who hit the walk-off, the 2-run home run to win it against Bowling Green, where they had struggled because I don't know if OU didn't take them full on, really respect them going in, but it was a slow start. I mean, you had players like Audrey Lowry who made her first start as a pitcher. Patty Gasso talked about that. Maybe that was too much for her at the time, starting in that environment. I mean, you had Sydney Barker going to shortstop. Usually Gabby Garcia's kind of there, but they're trying out Sydney Barker too, just to have like a tandem. Maybe that's what it is. But there were some plays that she could have made there that she didn't make. And then you had Tia Malloy, who was coming off of a 2-hit game and she had a diving catch in the outfield. So you kind of wanted to see where she was. So she was inserted into the lineup too against Bowling Green. So you had like a couple of different spots that were a little different than normal. And I think it just took them a second to get going with that. And so it showed really good will from them to push the extra innings, to really tie the game up after going down 3-0 in the first inning. They had to fight back throughout the day. And so you saw some good things there because of stuff like that. And so it's really good to see where they're at right now. 14-0, can't really complain too much. Just where are they going to be ranked and stuff like that? That's the biggest question now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, 14-0 is obviously, great. You can't do any better than that. I want to ask you, and we do this every year because it's nitpicking because the bar is so astronomically high when you win 4 straight national titles, and they're 14-0, so it seems silly to even say. But I'm just curious from your perspective, what's the concern for you? Obviously, they've had some close games against teams you wouldn't expect them to. Now, they had a bunch of run rules too. So again, the bar is ridiculously high. Okay, they're 14-0. Acknowledge that. But for you, I guess, is it pitching depth? Is it offense being a little reliant on a few players? Is there anything that stands out as they need to improve this to go the distance like they usually do? Or, is it kind of everything is mostly good and just need to improve in kind of a bunch? Is there anything that stands out, I guess, from these first 14 games that could be a weak spot or maybe a weakness as the season goes on?
There are 2 different things that I've noticed that may could hurt them when they play tougher opponents. You talked about the pitching depth. Yes, that could be an issue. Sam Landry is phenomenal. Sam Landry is phenomenal. Like she's a starter that you absolutely need. She's the one you can really rely on. She's like the Kelly Maxwell of this group. She's that good. Then you have Isabella Smith, who has proven herself here and there, but it's the rest of the staff. If they had to start in a World Series game or an elimination game, it would be a little, I'm not sure. Now, that's not to say they can't get better, obviously, but, players like Kirsten Deal, Peyton Monticelli, Audrey Lowry, who didn't have the best starts so far this season, but they're really good, I think, when they come in for an inning or two, when stuff like that. So if you can have Sam Landry be your starting pitcher and ride her, I know Patty Gasso does not like to do that when it comes postseason time, but this may be the time that they have to do that if they want to continue this run, because what you're getting at Sam Landry, the type of dominance that she can bring. It may just be that type of situation for her. And the other thing is, going into this season, they said they weren't going to hit a lot of home runs. It was going to be more of a small ball speed type of thing. They haven't done well in those small ball areas so far. Like there's just times where they can't get the bunt down. Where a lot of the times we've only seen it happen 2 times this year, when they really needed a sack bunt and they got it. And it's more because of Abby Dayton she's just really good at it already. Yeah. So you haven't seen that, and they've been caught stealing about 3 or 4 times. Different players on OU that maybe can hurt you, later on. Like it didn't hurt them too much against Bowling Green. We're getting caught stealing at third base, but against SEC opponents, against those top teams, I mean, they know this. They've done it. They are the top team. They know what is acceptable. That's the areas they need to improve on. Now, I say all that to say this is not like a big worrisome factor. This is just something small. Really this is something small to make them a lot better, I guess you could say. So it's not like I don't think they can do it. I think they for sure can do it. I think I have more confidence now than I did going into the season about this group because of what I've seen so far from this team and how they handle adversity. They've done it a couple of times now. They've gone to, I think it was a 2 or 3 extra inning games now where they've really battled through and got over the hump. So I think that's where they're at. So that's what I've seen.
No doubt. I agree with all that. Some things to button up, but you're still playing well. You're still 14-0. You got to do your learning after winning as opposed to the other way. And like you said, I have been impressed. And I talked about this maybe last week or after opening weekend, that they still kind of seem to have that inevitability about them of you just kind of feel like they're going to win. Even when it doesn't look great, it's like they'll get it done. They'll find a way to get the run they need. They'll find a way to whatever. And they have done that so far. Obviously, they're 14-0. They're back home this week. They have 5 more home games coming up this weekend. Some interesting matchups there. Marshall, I think, Kansas City, and then Kansas, who obviously we've seen many times over the years in the Big 12. They come to Norman this weekend. So more home games. And we'll get a chance to learn more about this squad. But that SEC play is looming. Like you said, very good league in every sport at this point. And we're going to learn more about them soon, but they're playing well. Obviously, 14-0. You're not going to complain too much about that. Some things you want to see improve and button up, but they're still winning every game right now. So,
can I put you on the spot, Josh?
Sure.
This is a discourse we've been having, right? Now, Florida lost the game earlier this season. Texas lost the game earlier this season, although they have 2 really good wins. Oklahoma's undefeated. The strength of schedule hasn't been too crazy. Where would you have ranked those 3? Because that's the biggest thing. 1, 2, or 3, it's like those are the teams that have been fighting for it. but nobody really has a significant this is the reason why this team should be here, and this is because it could go either way. That's the crazy part about this SEC schedule, as you talked about it. These top 3 teams are all up there. It's like, where would you even rank them? And I don't know, if you thought about that or had the notion to even think about something like that, but it's wild.
It's funny because I feel like in almost every sport, teams that have been consistently great get the benefit of the doubt, and they probably really shouldn't because every year is different and all that. But that's the way it goes. We see it in football all the time. I mean, Alabama or Georgia, whoever's been kind of on their current run, they get a little bit of the benefit of the doubt the next year.
Point.
So it's kind of crazy, man.
Even with new guys. Yeah, even with new guys. And that was the thing about, that's what people were knocking OU about was, well, it's a whole new team. They graduated as the greatest softball class ever. But when you put it into a football perspective, Alabama and those type of teams were always kind of ranked high anyway.
You've seen in all sports, really. And so the fact that they are the 4-time defending champs, who know what they do. I mean, 4-time, that's absurd. They're unbeaten. I think not having number 1 in the preseason, I think, that's fine. Again, I'm good either way. But if the other teams are going to be dropping games, I mean, I get Oklahoma hasn't played a murderer's row by any means, but you've won 4 natties in a row. You have the best coach to ever coach the sport. They probably should be number 1 now. And again, it's all just fodder for arguing online, but it seems a little silly.
Because we saw Florida drop after losing 1, but Texas didn't, I guess. Yeah. So that was like, what? So we'll see what happens.
We'll see. If they keep winning, they'll get to that number 1.
They'll get there eventually.
Just keep winning. As for baseball, phenomenal weekend. Shifting over to the other diamond sport, they went down in Round Rock, the Round Rock Classic. Played 3 games down there and they won them all. I mean, you went into the weekend thinking if you get 2, that's a big win. That's a legitimate success. And they swept the weekend. Kyson Witherspoon was absolutely insane on Friday against Minnesota. Gave up a leadoff homer to the first batter, then went 13 in a row after that. 12 Ks, career high, no walks, 7 innings.
12 Ks.
Phenomenal. Yeah, career high. He was phenomenal. They beat Minnesota on Friday. Probably should have won that game more comfortably. They put a lot of guys on base and just couldn't quite get the big hit to really put it away. But they gutted it out. They got that win. And then Saturday, number 7, Oregon State. Malachi Witherspoon was great. The bullpen was phenomenal in that game. They shut down the Beavers, won that one. And then Sunday, number 2, Virginia. Again, fall behind early. They're down 3-0, but the offense figures it out. They get some runs on the board. The bullpen, again, was absolutely sensational. The game went to extra innings, and they found a way to get it done. Jaden Barfield, freshman reliever, pitcher, is a lefty. First inning of his collegiate career. He comes in the 12th against number 2 Virginia in a tie game in Round Rock. Goes 1-2-3 with 2 Ks. They walk it off in the bottom half. A++ weekend. I mean, there's nothing to complain about at all. They had a few, kind of head scratching guys got picked off. They had a couple defensive miscues, but I mean, you're playing really good teams. That's going to happen. To win all 3 of these games was a major statement. They're now ranked number 16 in the D1 baseball top 25. Some places have them as high as number 12. They could very well be higher than that. I mean, I was
going to say the resume.
Unbelievable weekend. They pitched, they hit. Kyle Branch, this freshman, we talked about him after opening weekend. It's one thing to do it at home against Lehigh as a true freshman. It's another thing to go down to Round Rock and to do it. He was tournament MVP for the weekend in Round Rock. He's a freshman, second baseman, and he plays a great second base, but he's just unstoppable at the plate. He had so many big hits all weekend long. It's one weekend. It's still very early. It's 6 games in a long baseball season, but this team looks like they've got the juice to do a lot this year, and I think fans are very excited, and rightfully so. It was a phenomenal weekend, and I don't really even know what else to say. It was, again, you went in thinking beat Minnesota and split the top 10 games, and that is a big win, and they won all 3, and I think they were kind of the talk of college baseball this weekend with how well they played. Everyone pitched pretty well. The bullpen is proving to be really deep. That was kind of one of the questions coming in was the rotation looks phenomenal on paper, but is the bullpen gonna back it up? So far, the bullpen has been excellent, absolutely excellent. I think almost literally everyone who has come into pitch has pitched pretty well this season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's even hyperbole. It's been kind of nuts that Skip Johnson just keeps bringing one arm after another, and they're all performing. The offense is showing an ability kind of reminiscent of softball teams of the past, really. First time through the order, maybe don't have it, kind of struggling to see, but then making the adjustments the second time through. They did that on Saturday and Sunday. First time through the order, Oregon State, Dax Whitney shut them down. I think they might have started 9 up, 9 down, or didn't have a hit first time through the order, and then just exploded in the fourth inning with that second time through. Same thing on Sunday against Valencius, I think is how you pronounce it, for Virginia. Mm-hmm. He was shutting them down. They couldn't see him at all. Second time through, they got it going. Like, they're showing the ability to adjust in game, which is huge. That's a championship thing that, championship caliber teams can do. A lot to like. It was a massively successful weekend, and we'll see how they followed up at home. They got a 5-game homestand this week, but fans are pumped up and excited, and I think rightfully so. That was a heck of a weekend down there in Round Rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you talked about pitching being the big thing, and it looks like they've done a really good job at that so far. And the resume says they should be higher than 16. Like, I mean, you beat the number 2 team. Like, what are we doing? Like,
and
it's
number
like
7.
Yeah, like, and number 7. Like, it has to be higher than that. I don't know what's going on there, but OU's playing really well. I mean, it was a great weekend for OU sports. I think fans just had a blast and didn't feel right just because of all the winning they were doing. Like, what's going on here? So then, obviously, the Thunder have to go and do that last night and just blow a crazy lead to bring us all back down. But it's wild. It's wild what's going on. I think Skip Johnson has a really good group. They're doing really good things. As you said, the batters being able to adjust to what's happening. That's the sign of a good team. Like, if they have ability to do something different to change the outcome, it's a lot better, because you're bad when you can't do anything about something. Like, if you can't do anything about it, you can't do anything about it. I can't hit his fastball, coach. I don't know what you mean to do. Like, that's not the area they're in. So it's a good sign of a good team. So far.
And like, kind of what I said about the bullpen, where every guy who has come in has really pitched quite well. Dylan Crooks was phenomenal on Sunday, 3 innings out of the bullpen. We talked about him before the season. He's going to be a big part of the bullpen. He was really good on Sunday. I want to make sure to get him in.
Mm-hmm.
But offensively, it's kind of been the same thing. Like, obviously, there's a few guys who you would expect have been great. I mean, guys who we talked about before the year, Jason Walk, Jackson Willis has been awesome. He had a homer over the weekend. Easton Carmichael's had his big moments. He blasted a homer over the weekend as well. But there's been other guys. I mean, other guys who, even at times where it's kind of like, like Dayton Taki had a kind of a rough first couple of games. Sunday, he comes in. He didn't get the start on Sunday. They moved him to the bench for the day. They moved Christensen over to first and had Brandon Keane playing right. Taki comes in as a pinch hitter and gets 2 big hits late in that game. Like, everyone 1 through 9 has contributed to the winning in some way, which is really exciting. Same thing for Dawson Willis. He's been awesome at third, but the bat hasn't really gotten going just yet. He drops a perfect bunt that ended up being the walk-off hit on Sunday against Virginia. Like, everyone almost literally, I feel like, has a play over the course of these first 6 games, especially this past weekend in Round Rock, where they can kind of circle as like, that was huge in winning game X, like that. And that's really big. Not kind of reliant. It's not like it's just Jackson Willis, Easton Carmichael are carrying the offense right now or something like that. It's really a 1 through 9. It's really exciting. It's very early, but you can kind of see the pieces of, okay, this team, and there was a lot of excitement coming into the year, and they've lived up to it so far. Really, really just fun. It's fun, and hopefully they can keep it going. 5-game homestand this week. The weather is great. So hopefully fans can get out there and see this team, and they'll be playing at home today. I'll be there against Texas Southern, and then they got Cal State Northridge this weekend. So 5 home games, better weather, and hopefully they can keep this thing rolling and continue to build on in the early part of the year before SEC play starts here in a few weeks.
Yeah, so softball has Gabby Garcia and Sydney Barker kind of trying to play out for that shortstop position. I mean, how are the position battles going, for the baseball team? Is anybody leading right now after these couple of games that you've seen?
Yeah, there's obviously you have a few that are totally solidified. Like Jackson Willis is your shortstop. Kyle Branch he has run away with that second base job. Obviously, that's his. He's locked it up. He's been so good. Jason Walk's going to be in center. Easton Carmichael and Scott Muller are your catchers. You don't have a catcher catch every game, so they're going to kind of go back and forth there. I think they're still figuring things out a little bit. The corner outfield spots and first base. Sam Christensen has been great. He's going to play, but he can play first or he can play right. So they've kind of been moving him back and forth. They let Dayton Taki in there. Brandon Kane got in there. We saw Deshaun Harris obviously get some starts in opening weekend. He played again this past weekend, but they've kind of been shifting around those corner, and it's kind of just, we talked about before, the early part of the year. That's kind of what you do. You kind of tinker with the lineup. You figure it out. They haven't really run the same lineup back too many times these first 6 games. That top 3, they even slid Carmichael into cleanup and moved Trey Gamble, who was DHing, into left field, and then put him in the 3 hole because he's been getting on base so much in front of Easton Carmichael now. So you can see it, and this is totally normal. They do this every year. You really, honestly, until like April, don't really have the solidified lineup, and that's kind of when you start to find this is our 9, pencil it in every game. So there's kind of been tinkering around. I mean, certain guys have kind of run away with it. Trey Gamble, like I said, he's been so good. He's played his way into kind of being an everyday guy. Same for Sam Christensen. But yeah, that right field, first base, DH, that's kind of been where the musical chairs have been. But a lot of guys have performed. So it's kind of a good, it's not a nobody's performing. It's kind of more a lot of guys have had moments. You're kind of trying to figure out how to get everyone in the best spot to be successful. So, but there's still some shuffling, and I expect to see more shuffling this week. I'm curious. Skip Johnson in the past has really liked to use these midweek games as an opportunity to get other guys ABs and things like that. So I'm kind of curious what the lineups look like these next 2 days, but lots to like. Obviously, these first 2 weekends, it's been really exciting and fun to watch. So we'll see what they do this week, but a lot to like, obviously.
I mean, kind of like you asked on softball, like, are there any small things that you think that they can improve on to really get better? I mean, they're beating the top, top teams right now, but is there some things that maybe can come back and bite them if they don't handle, kind of before SEC play and the tournament, things like that?
Yeah, nothing huge. I mean, over the weekend, they got picked off way too many times. Can't be getting picked off base. That really hurt them on Sunday against Virginia. Obviously, they ended up winning the game, but early on, I mean, when you're struggling to get base runners, and they were early in the game, getting a guy on first and then him getting picked off immediately is just so deflating. And it was guys who don't even steal bases. Like, I not to put him on blast, but like Scott Mudler, he's not stealing second base. Like, what are you doing getting picked off? You know what I mean? So got to clean that up. That could have hurt him on Sunday. They ended up winning the game anyway, but that is just a rally offensive inning killer. And you get a guy picked off base. I had a couple of that. And look, they're very aggressive on the bases. That's how they've always been with Reggie Willis, that chaos mantra. But again, like getting picked off and trying to take the extra bag and things like that are different things. But pitching-wise, it's been great. If you're Cam Johnson, specifically to him, the arm talent is outrageous. Got to just reel it in with the command a little bit. Had 5 walks opening weekend. Only 1 walk on Sunday, but he hit a couple of guys. His pitch count got really elevated, and that hurt him. He only threw 3 innings because he threw 75 pitches in 3 innings. So he's got to find a way to be a little more efficient. But these are nitpicky things because obviously they're playing very, very well.
Yep.
But yeah, nothing overly huge. I mean, defensively, there's a couple miscues on Sunday, but I think for the most part, it's been pretty good. I think a lot to like so far through 6 games. A couple nitpicky things, like I said. I mean, I think honestly, it's kind of encouraging that even despite that, they still were able to win on Sunday against a Virginia team who's obviously a team that's looked at as an Omaha caliber squad. So yeah, good stuff so far. Not a lot to complain about, really. And they're back home 5 games this week. Look forward to getting out there today at Ella Mitchell Park, and we'll see what they do against Texas Southern here this afternoon. All right, I think that's it. Had a lot of winning to talk about. Good vibes show. Be back with Colin on Friday to recap the latest on the recruiting side. Always a lot to get into with him. We'll do that on Friday. Then we'll be back, Tom, James, and myself on Monday to recap the weeks that were for men's hoops, women's hoops, and the Diamond Sports. And obviously continue our positioned stats report series. We'll also preview the start of spring practice as we move into March. What are we watching for? Spring practice storylines, headlines. That'll be on Monday, so you don't want to miss that. Good kind of primer for the start of spring ball, which is next week, if you can believe it. It's that time as the nucleus of all the sports merging. We've arrived as March comes up starting next week. That's it for now. For Tom Green, James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway, signing off for now. We'll see you next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.